Have you ever felt completely abandoned without an explanation? He didn't cry. He didn't say goodbye. He just walked away, leaving you in silence and confusion. But what if I told you that this silence isn't indifference, it's agony? That behind his cold retreat lies a depth of pain you were never meant to carry, but were always meant to understand. If you've been left with questions that haunt your heart, you're not alone. And this video might finally give voice to what you've always sensed, but couldn't explain. Today, we're going to take you deep into the hidden world of the divine masculine, into the sacred pain he can't articulate and the silent war he's fighting within. You'll learn why his love for you doesn't look like affection, but avoidance, not because he's weak, but because loving you forces him to confront everything he's suppressed. The wounds, the fears, the false beliefs that once kept him safe. You'll see that his silence is not a lack of feeling, it's the beginning of his inner collapse, a sacred breaking meant to lead him home to truth. By the end of this video, you won't just feel clarity, you'll feel compassion. You'll no longer internalize his silence as rejection, but recognize it as the pressure of transformation. And most importantly, you'll walk away with a deeper sense of peace, knowing that his love was never gone. It was just buried beneath everything he didn't know how to face. This truth could change how you love, how you heal, and how you continue this sacred journey. Watch this video all the way through. If it stirs something inside you, if your soul whispers, yes, then stay open. Because what you're about to hear might not only answer your questions, it might also bring you back to yourself. Section 1. The Hidden Storm. At first glance, he may seem completely fine. He moves through life with what appears to be stability, attending to daily responsibilities, showing up at work, maintaining his routines. He doesn't fall apart in front of you, and so you assume he must be okay. But that's the illusion. His silence isn't a sign of emotional absence. It's the surface of a storm he's been trained to hide. Behind those quiet eyes lies a pain too deep to articulate, a sorrow too tangled for words. The truth is, the divine masculine has been taught, often from childhood and passed down through generations, that showing emotion is a weakness, that pain must be endured alone, and that vulnerability is something to fear. Society told him to be a provider, a protector, a pillar, but no one taught him how to grieve. No one gave him permission to feel. So instead of speaking, he swallows his cries. Instead of leaning in, he pulls back. He wears strength like armor, even as his soul quietly bleeds beneath it. And when separation strikes, when the bond between you becomes strained, when your soul begins to tug at his in the unseen, he doesn't rush to fix it. He doesn't text. He doesn't explain. Not because he doesn't care, but because he's overwhelmed by the magnitude of what he feels and unequipped to hold it. This disconnection isn't coldness, it's paralysis. It's his coping mechanism, the only way he knows how to survive the inner chaos he cannot name. What you're witnessing isn't indifference, it's suppression. It's a heart screaming silently under the weight of unprocessed wounds. He retreats not to hurt you, but because he's still learning how to face himself. Behind the curtain of his detachment is a storm waiting to be understood, not judged. And though he may not have the words to say it, his silence is not the absence of love. It is the place where his healing begins. Before we move forward, take a moment to truly sit with what you've just heard. This isn't just about him. It's about the hidden emotional battles so many carry behind composed faces. Can you recall a time when someone's silence masked a deeper pain? Or perhaps you've experienced that storm within yourself. We invite you to reflect and share your thoughts in the comments. Your story could help someone else feel seen. And if this message resonates deeply with your heart, simply type, I see the storm behind his silence as an affirmation of awareness and compassion. Let's continue this journey together with empathy and open hearts. Section 2. The invisible collapse. If you could step inside his energy just for a moment, you wouldn't see calm or indifference. You would feel a storm swirling beneath the surface, a quiet collapse that no one else notices. The moment everything he tried to control begins to slip through his fingers. The moment he realizes that the one person who truly saw him, the one who looked beyond the image, the strength, the mask, is no longer there. And that loss doesn't just sting, it shatters something deep inside him. But here's the truth. He doesn't know what to do with that pain, not because he doesn't care, but because he was never taught how to feel it. He was taught to fix, to suppress, to find a solution and move on. Vulnerability was never an option in the world that raised him. Emotions were problems to be solved, not experiences to be felt. So when something this powerful, this soul-shaking, this sacred connection breaks through his defenses, he doesn't have a template. He doesn't have the emotional language. All he knows is something inside him is breaking, and he doesn't know how to hold it. And so he pulls away, not because he's cold, and not because he has stopped loving you. His silence isn't a dismissal. His distance is not an absence of feeling. Quite the opposite. It's a form of emotional survival, a way to keep from drowning in waves he doesn't know how to swim through. He doesn't reach out, not because he doesn't want to, but because the depth of what he feels is overwhelming. He can't compartmentalize this connection the way he's used to compartmentalizing life. He cares, more than you could ever imagine. But he's hurting, deeply. And in that hurt, he's still trying to hold himself together in the only way he knows how. Through silence, through distance, through pretending that nothing is wrong. But inside, everything is falling apart. So the next time you wonder if he feels what you feel, know this. The collapse may be invisible to the outside world, but it is very real to him. And in his quiet suffering lies a love that is still learning how to rise. Section 3. Haunted by unworthiness. His pain isn't cold. It's not distant, careless, or detached. It's heavy. It carries a weight he doesn't know how to release. It's haunted by moments left unfinished, words never spoken, love withheld out of fear. On the outside, he might appear composed. He might look like he's moved on, even thriving. But that's only a mask, a shell carefully maintained to survive the world. Inside, he's frozen in time, trapped in the very moment he lost you. That was the moment everything cracked. The moment he realized he wasn't ready. Not because he didn't feel love, but because he didn't feel worthy of it. Because staying would have meant being fully seen, fully known, and that terrified him. Staying would have meant facing the parts of himself he spent a lifetime burying. So he ran, not from you, but from the unraveling of his own armor. Now, silence has become his prison, a place where he can still control the narrative, where he doesn't have to explain the chaos inside. But within that silence, your name still echoes. Not out loud, but in the quiet corners of his soul where no one else can reach. He remembers you, not just your smile, your touch, your presence, but the way you saw him, the way you reflected back to him a version of himself he wanted to believe in, but didn't know how to embody. Your memory doesn't haunt him like a ghost. It doesn't scream. It doesn't rage. It lingers like a mirror, still, patient, powerful. And every time he looks into it, he sees not just what was, but what could be. The man he could become, the love he could hold, the healing he could allow. If only he stopped hiding from himself. He hasn't forgotten you. He hasn't let go. What he's truly haunted by is not your absence, but the version of himself he knows he must become to meet you again. And that journey begins not with chasing you, but with confronting the belief that he is somehow unworthy of the very love he longs for most. Section 4. The boy behind the mask. A sacred unveiling. His pain doesn't erupt in outbursts or dramatic scenes. It's much quieter than that, deeper, more sacred. It's the silent ache of a boy who never had permission to cry, whose tears were never welcomed, only shamed. Beneath the armor of the man he appears to be is a tender heart that never learned it was safe to break. What looks like confidence and composure on the outside is often a carefully practiced performance, a mask perfected over years of survival. And yet, the one loving you is not just the man, but the wounded boy inside him. The boy who was told to man up, who was rewarded for suppressing emotions and applauded for appearing strong, even when he was shattered on the inside. When he meets you, the divine feminine who sees through every mask, who holds a mirror up to his soul, he doesn't pull away because he lacks emotion. He pulls away because he feels everything, all at once. Your love doesn't just touch the surface, it goes straight to the core. It illuminates the places he's buried, the emotions he's repressed, the fears he thought he could outrun, and the most haunting fear of all, that someone could finally see him, fully, vulnerably, and then still choose to leave. So when he distances himself, when he seems to retreat, it's not indifference. It's the terrified response of a soul encountering unconditional love for the first time. You don't just love the man, you're touching the fragile heart of the boy he once was, and in doing so, you awaken every wound he never had the chance to heal. To be seen by you is both his greatest desire and his greatest fear. Because being truly known means risking the very thing he's most afraid of, being abandoned after being real. In truth, he doesn't need fixing. He needs safety. He needs presence. He needs time to realize that your love isn't here to expose his weakness. It's here to hold his wholeness. What you're witnessing is not a rejection of love, but the unraveling of lifetimes of self-protection. And that unraveling is sacred. Section 5. The fear of surrender, where love meets the edge of his survival. To the untrained eye, surrender might seem like softness, like the natural next step in a loving connection. But to him, surrender doesn't feel like peace. It feels like danger. It means lowering his guard, letting go of the armor that has long protected him, and stepping away from the identity he meticulously built to survive a world that once made him feel small, unseen, or unsafe. That armor isn't just a defense mechanism. It has become a second skin, a familiar, rigid protection that has kept him upright through countless storms. Without it, he fears he might completely fall apart. When he's invited to open up, to trust, to fully receive the love you offer, his entire nervous system registers it as a threat. Not because your love is dangerous, but because vulnerability has never been safe for him. Surrender would mean exposing the softest, most guarded parts of himself. It would mean being seen in ways he's never allowed before. And with that visibility comes the terrifying possibility of abandonment, not just by a partner, but by the identity he's clung to his whole life. So even though his heart yearns for closeness, his instinct for survival tells him to pull away. That's why he may retreat. That's why he might sabotage the very thing he craves. The push-pull energy, the hot and cold behavior, the moments of connection, followed by silence. It's not personal, even though it feels that way. It's the inner battle between his heart, which wants to leap, and his mind, which has been trained to run. The fear doesn't stem from your actions, but from the internal conflict between love and conditioning, between safety and self-protection. When you extend your hand, offering sanctuary, healing, and sacred union, he doesn't immediately see peace. He sees uncertainty. Where you offer a safe place to land, he sees a cliff's edge. And this is the complexity of loving him. You are not just asking him to choose you, you are inviting him to release the only version of himself that's ever kept him safe. And that, for him, is the scariest surrender of all. Yet in time, if he can recognize that your love is not a trap, but a doorway to freedom, something within him may begin to shift. Slowly, gently, not through pressure, but through presence, through the unwavering truth that love doesn't demand surrender. It inspires it. Section 6. The weight of unworthiness. When love feels too good to believe, he hears your words. He feels your love. He sees the way you forgive him, how you speak with softness instead of judgment, how you hold space when he falters. And yet, he doesn't believe it, not fully. Deep beneath the surface of his heart lives a quiet, persistent voice, whispering that he is unworthy of the very love he craves. It's not that he doesn't appreciate your kindness. It's that something inside him is convinced he hasn't earned it, doesn't deserve it, or can't possibly sustain it. This belief didn't begin with you. It's old, rooted in childhood wounds, reinforced through past relationships, possibly even etched into the soul from lifetimes of abandonment, rejection, or punishment for simply being who he is. Somewhere along the line, he learned that love is conditional, that being too much would push people away, and being not enough would get him left behind. He internalized the idea that to be lovable, he must constantly perform, achieve, or prove himself. So when you come in with unconditional love, not demanding, not fixing, just loving, his entire foundation trembles. Your love, ironically, is what activates the wound. Not because your love is wrong, but because it's right. It reaches so deeply into the layers of his being that it stirs the very places he's kept hidden. When you love him without needing him to be more or less than he is, it brings to light all the reasons why he believes that can't be real. And so he deflects. He makes jokes when you compliment him. He shrugs off your affection. He pulls away just when things get intimate. Not because he doesn't want you, but because the mask of unworthiness tells him you'll leave once you really see him. This mask is subtle. It doesn't shout. It whispers. It tells him to play it cool, to stay detached, to protect his heart before it gets broken again. But what lies underneath is a soul desperate to be accepted just as he is. The challenge is, he doesn't yet know how to accept that for himself. When you notice these patterns, it's not your job to fix them, but your awareness is powerful. Your consistency, your gentleness, your refusal to shrink in the face of his retreat, that is what slowly cracks the armor. Not through pressure, but through presence. Every moment you meet his fear with patience, every time you affirm that he doesn't need to earn your love, you give him a new blueprint, a new truth to consider. In the end, this isn't just about romance. It's about rewiring his understanding of love itself. And while that's not an overnight journey, it begins with one sacred truth. He is already enough. Always has been. Always will be. If you've made it this far, it means your heart resonates deeply with the truth behind these words. You've looked beyond the surface and into the soul of a journey that's as raw as it is sacred. Take a moment to reflect. Have you seen this struggle in your divine masculine? Or perhaps within yourself? Healing begins with awareness, and sharing your story can be a powerful act of transformation. If you feel called, leave a comment below sharing your experience, or simply type, "I see behind the mask." Let that be your affirmation, that you recognize the sacred truth beneath the silence, the pain, and the armor. You are not alone, and your voice matters here. Section 7. The survival script. rewriting worthiness from within. What if I told you that his silence isn't coldness and his retreat isn't rejection? Often, when a man feels unworthy, it doesn't manifest as vulnerability or sadness. It shows up in disguise, through anger, withdrawal, avoidance, or walking away. On the outside, it may look like he's pushing you away, but beneath the surface, he's trying to protect something tender and fragile. He fears that if you see all of him, his doubts, flaws, and hidden wounds, you'll leave. Not because you don't care, but because he doesn't believe he's enough to stay loved once fully seen. This is the survival script he was taught, that love must be earned, that worth must be proven, and that emotions are liabilities rather than pathways to connection. So when he starts to pull back, it's not always because he doesn't love you. It's because he hasn't yet understood that love isn't a performance. It's a mirror. And in your presence, he is forced to face the parts of himself he was never taught to accept. But here's the deeper truth. Your role is not to fix him, rescue him, or carry his healing. Your love becomes the invitation for him to remember something ancient and sacred, his innate worthiness. And the most powerful way you do this is not through chasing, pleading, or proving, but by anchoring into your own self-worth. When you remain soft without losing your boundaries, when you stay open without demanding validation, you reflect back the kind of love that awakens remembrance, not fear. You show him that love doesn't demand perfection. It reveals it. It shines a gentle light on the places that ache, not to judge, but to soothe. And when you embody that love without pressure, without expectation, you create a sacred space. A space where the survival script begins to unravel and something new is written. One where love is not a condition to meet, but a truth to remember. So if he seems distant, remember this. He's not pushing you away to hurt you. He's trying to survive a storm within. Your calm presence, rooted in self-love, becomes the steady shoreline he never knew he needed. And sometimes, your stillness speaks louder than all the words he cannot say. Section 8. The journey through pain, when healing becomes his own. This part of the path is the hardest to accept. The truth that no matter how deeply you love him, no matter how clearly you see his light beneath the shadows, you cannot do the healing for him. This is his inner journey, his rite of passage, and it begins when he dares to turn inward and face the boy within, the one who was never told, "You are enough, just as you are." That wounded child still lives inside him, carrying the burden of old shame, unmet needs, and survival patterns that taught him love must be earned through suffering or sacrifice. And so, as much as his heart longs to receive your love, he may still reject it. Not because he doesn't feel it, but because a part of him believes he is unworthy of it. He might walk away. He might retreat. He might sabotage the very thing his soul desires most. Because to accept your love would mean to surrender the pain he has clung to for years. Pain that, for so long, has felt like identity. But here's where the miracle begins. Your wholeness becomes the quiet invitation for him to remember who he truly is. Not through pressure, not by rescuing, but by holding your frequency with grace, by embodying love, not fixing, by radiating worth, not explaining it. Your energy, steady and sacred, becomes a mirror that gently reflects back the truth. He was never broken, only buried. Over time, this reflection begins to stir something inside him. A knowing, a remembrance, a slow, sacred unraveling of the false beliefs that once defined him. And when that shift occurs, it's not because you saved him, it's because he found the courage to save himself. Because you showed him, through your example, that love doesn't demand healing to begin. It offers space where healing becomes possible. So trust the journey, even the painful parts, especially the painful parts. Know that what you're holding isn't just space for him, but space for the divine to work through both of you. His pain is not the end. It's the place where the real transformation begins. Section 9. The Awakening. When he finally comes home to himself. Awakening isn't loud. It doesn't come with fireworks or grand apologies. It doesn't show up wrapped in promises or dramatic returns. True awakening is quiet, sacred, internal. And when it happens for the divine masculine, it's not because you forced it, begged for it, or chased it. It's because you became a mirror for truth. He doesn't awaken because of you, but through you. Through the strength of your boundaries, the way you loved without abandoning yourself. Through the way you chose presence over pursuit, grace over grasping. It was in your stillness, your sovereignty, your unwavering alignment with self-worth that something inside him began to stir. Slowly, the walls he built began to crack. The silence he used as armor started to echo with the sound of his own soul calling him home. He stops running, not from you, but from himself, from the false stories, from the pain he once believed defined him, from the belief that love must be earned, or that vulnerability is weakness. He begins to see, perhaps for the first time, that the love he resisted all along was the very thing he's been aching for. But this recognition doesn't come with a declaration. It's subtle, a soft shift, a moment of clarity in the stillness of the night, a deep breath where he no longer feels the need to hide. It's a coming home, not to you as a savior, but to himself as a man finally willing to feel. And in that awakening, he sees you not as someone who fixed him, but as someone who reflected his wholeness all along. The one who stayed rooted in love without losing yourself. The one who reminded him that real love doesn't demand. It reveals, it holds, it frees. This is the beauty of the journey. The divine masculine awakens not by force, but by grace. Not in your shadow, but in your light. And when he rises, he doesn't just return to you. He returns to his truth, to his heart, to the only thing that was ever real. Imagine a man who spent his entire life building walls instead of bridges. Walls made of silence, pride, and emotional distance. He meets a woman whose love is pure, unwavering, yet rooted in self-respect. She doesn't chase him when he pulls away. She doesn't beg for his attention when he disappears. Instead, she holds her ground. She continues her own healing, lives her truth, and quietly sends the message, I love you, but I will not abandon myself to keep you. At first, he resists. Her steadiness feels foreign, even threatening. But over time, something inside him shifts. He notices how her energy feels different, not demanding, but inviting. One night, alone with his thoughts, he realizes that the only love that ever felt real was the one that asked for nothing but honesty. Not perfection, not performance, just presence. And that's when he awakens, not with a dramatic gesture, but with a single, powerful decision. To stop running from the parts of himself that are worthy of love. In her reflection, he sees not just her grace, but the man he wants to become. That moment, though unseen by the world, is sacred. It's the turning point where he chooses truth over fear. That is the awakening. Section 10. A return to union. There comes a moment on the twin flame journey when everything shifts, not because one person forces it, but because something deeper finally aligns. This is not the masculine you once knew, the one who ran, who resisted, who was entangled in fear and ego. This is the man who has stopped hiding from himself, the one who no longer pushes you away, not because he's trying to keep you, but because he's finally ready to meet you. Not to fix, not to prove, not to perform, but simply to be. This transformation is subtle, yet profound. He doesn't return with grand gestures or rehearsed apologies. Instead, he shows up in presence. He meets your gaze without fear. He stands in your energy without shrinking, defending, or retreating. He's no longer overwhelmed by your light. He recognizes it, because now he sees it in himself. He remembers who he is, and in that remembrance, he also remembers who you are, not as the one who chased him, but as the mirror of his soul. You are not a fantasy to be feared or a burden to escape. You are truth. You are home. This is the true return to union, not a fairy tale ending, but a sacred beginning. A co-creation rooted not in longing or lack, but in alignment, in mutual recognition, in shared presence. The energy has shifted from survival to soul, from avoidance to allowance, and in this space, something holy begins to rise. Union is no longer a distant hope or something to strive for. It becomes a frequency, a living vibration felt in the stillness, the eye contact, the breath. It is a sacred becoming, an anchoring into divine love without condition, control, or fear. And when he rises to match your frequency, not because you demanded it, but because his soul chose it, then union is no longer something you wait for. It is something you live, right here, right now. This journey was never about creating a perfect love story. It was about remembering who you are and who he is beneath the armor. It's not about fixing him, chasing him, or waiting for him to awaken. It's about becoming the mirror of truth he was never shown, the soft place he never had permission to rest in. It's about a woman who stopped seeking completion outside herself, and a man who, through her radiance, remembered that he was never broken, only disconnected. You didn't heal him. You healed you, and in doing so, you offered him the rarest kind of love. One that didn't demand, didn't control, and didn't rescue, but simply reflected. Reflected back the boy who never felt safe, the man who forgot his truth, and the soul who was always worthy of love. Not someday, but now. So if you've made it this far, pause and feel that. Let it sink in. You are not just part of his journey. You are the sacred invitation that called him home to himself. And when two souls come home to themselves first, love is no longer a struggle. It becomes a sacred inevitability. If this touched your heart, type the words, "He came home by remembering me," in the comments. Let it be your declaration, your affirmation, and your soul's reminder that the return to love always begins within. If this video resonated with you, please like it, share it with someone walking this path, and explore the next video waiting for you on the screen. Your journey matters, and you're never alone in it.